Comrades, working people, Chernobyl is yours and your family's future. Come and let us build a new, better tomorrow. Every pair of hands is needed. Atomic energy is our future.
We experienced a great misfortune, an accident in the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl. The reactor number 4 exploded. The firefighting action continues. A zone within 30-kilometer radius is contaminated. Pripyat. It is here where the families and employees of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant had lived until the day of the catastrophe. Immediately after the explosion, about 50,000 citizens were irrevocably evicted. Look around and pick a place you would like to get to know better. Elementary School number 3. Swimming pool. The Azure swimming pool was a pride of the city. It was built in 1970 and it had served the residents until the day of the explosion at the power plant. It had a pool and a gym. Diving platform. After the explosion in 1986, the pool was used by the liquidators and the power plant employees. It was finally closed in 1998. Gym. Gym. At the gym, they held physical education lessons and sport competitions for children from the nearby school number 3. Back to Pripyat. Scrapyard. Moscow Eye. The Duga-2 radar began its work in July 1976. The radar was used to detect the ballistic missiles with the nuclear warheads over the territory of the Soviet Union. It was a part of a missile defense and its range was more than 3,000 kilometers. Look around and learn about the history and the construction of the radar. Roof of the control room. The system consisted of the 2 receiving antennas. The smaller one was 90 meters high and 300 meters long, and it covered 14 to 30 megahertz range. The larger one was 150 meters high and 500 meters long, range 4 to 14 megahertz. The mass of the whole structure was about 14,000 tons, and the construction cost is estimated at $1.5 billion. Training room. Control room. There are a lot of conspiracy theories about the Moscow Eye. Some say that the antennas were used to cause storms anywhere in the world, and others about manipulating people's minds with the radio waves. No fact supports these theories, and the original long-range missile detection system of the radar seems to be true. Training room. Top of the antenna. What you hear is the transmission received by the antenna you're standing on. The signal disturbed the short connectivity and was called the Russian woodpecker after the disaster of the reactor number 4. Due to the interference caused by the radiation, the Moscow Eye was turned off forever. Training room. Training room. Training room. Top of the antenna. Under the antenna. Training room. The radar was able to detect the start of ballistic missiles from the northeastern parts of the United States. About 1,000 of specialists from various fields were needed to deal with it. The entire installation was top secret, guarded by the Soviet elite Spetsnaz units. Training room. Scrapyard. In the area of the exclusion zone, there are several scrapyards with the vehicles and machines used during firefighting and neutralizing action after the explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Trucks. The majority of the vehicles and machines used in the action were not suitable for further use due to the high radiation. Bulldozer tank. Unfortunately, more and more often, because of the value of scrap metal, illegal scrap collectors are stealing and selling valuable components of the vehicles and machinery. Back to Pripyat. Elementary School number 3. Indoctrination was a crucial element of the education. From early on, children were taught about the creators of communism, the leading role of the party, and the foundations of the socialist society. The teachers instilled a total submission of the individual and the collectivization of the actions. Such classrooms were indispensable in all the republics of the Soviet Union or the countries of the Eastern Bloc, such as East Germany or Poland. Walk around and learn more about the education in the Soviet Union. Mathematics was the basis on which the technical development of the Soviet Union was built. As early as primary school, the smartest pupils, supervised by their teachers, developed their skills in sciences. The best of them attended secondary schools and later went to renowned universities to become scientists or engineers. Nevertheless, it did not prevent the Russians from building a malfunctioning nuclear reactor, which construction was based on the solutions designed for the production of mass destruction weapon, not civilian applications. If you find an entrance to the long corridor, somewhere in here you will find a wooden case. Open it carefully. Shortly after the Second World War, in which the USA and the Western countries fought against the Soviet Union and the countries of the Eastern Bloc, the Cold War began. It meant a rising tension between the USA and the Soviet Union without a direct aggression from any of those countries. It led to the arms race and the large-scale production of mass destruction weapon. The fallout shelters were built, and every public building, including schools and kindergartens, had warehouses with gas masks for the whole staff and the students. At the end of April 1986, shortly before the catastrophe, the whole city was preparing for the International Labor Day. As usual on the 1st of May, a pompous march was to take place to honor the working class of the Soviet Union. Nowadays, few people may remember that it was established in 1889 by the socialist parties of the United Kingdom, France, Germany and Belgium in memory of the bloodily repressed workers' demonstrations in Chicago in 1886. It's a different place. This is a gym of the school number 3. Various sporting events were held here. Every day, physical education classes were carried out. Children could play football, basketball. There were even some sorts of stands where students could cheer on their teams and their rivals as well. And it was always popular. Football, volleyball, basketball were one of the most common and popular types of games that were practiced in all schools. Not only school, but also the town competitions and other events were held here. Afterwards, students traveled to Kiev, the province, and other regions of Ukraine. Now we will see a different place. Elementary School number 3. Community Center. The energetic community center was a modern recreation facility with an auditorium, a sports hall, a cafe and a disco. In front of the center there was also Lenin's monument. In this place the cultural life of Pripyat was bursting. To find out more, listen to the stories of the guide. Guide. The energetic community center was the center of the cultural life of Pripyat. Almost all mass events were held here. Weddings, birth registration of newborns, wedding parties, party and union meetings, and numerous concerts. Back then, many people were coming here. The hall, which you can see now, used to be a disco club. A disco was organized at the weekends, as the town was full of many young people. The average age was 28, so the disco was always crowded. People had fun and felt good there. Sometimes I just want to believe that the social life there, in the next room, in the hall, is still ongoing. I remember very well the day when we first found out about it. It was rumored, as you could not talk about it in the Soviet Union. We immediately felt that this subject was a taboo. We seemed to find out about it quite accidentally. Amusement park. A Ferris wheel was supposed to be the biggest attraction of the amusement park. 20 gondolas were to carry up to 80 people. They could have admired the panoramic view of the city at 20 meters. Guide. On the 1st of May 1986, the town was supposed to host a significant event. The town first amusement park was going to be opened. I believe that for such a small town, which already had a solid infrastructure, the opening of the park was very important, also because there were so many children in the town. And of course, on Saturdays and Sundays, people would be able to just go there and have fun. There was a Ferris wheel, swings, roundabouts, and even bumper cars, which you can drive and bump into other cars. There was a center nearby, where people could go and have a coffee, a snack, or lunch, or spend a good time with their kids. But the tragedy of the 26th of April damaged all these plans, and on the 27th of April, the entire town was evacuated. Right now we can see all that's left of this park. There are rumors that the amusement park was opened shortly after the explosion to distract people from the disaster. but no one can confirm this information, and the preserved archival materials indicate that only a trial test was run before the scheduled opening. Back to Pripyat. Flat. Flat. Most of the flats in Pripyat are empty. Single seats, sofas, and other furnishings were preserved only in few of them. When it became obvious that Pripyat would be a ghost town forever, several actions were organized during which the residents could take the most necessary things from their flats. Attention, attention. Dear comrades, the City Council of People's Deputies reports on the unfavorable radiation situation in the town of Pripyat in connection with the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The party, government bodies and military units are taking all necessary measures. However, in order to ensure a complete safety of the people, and children in particular, there is a temporal need to evacuate the residents to settlements in the Kiev region. Scrapyard, Kiev. Do you remember the 26th of April 1986? Was it an ordinary day or a special day? I remember it very well because my father was alerted very early that day, at about 5 or 6 in the morning, and disappeared for a few days. The next day, I remember there were no buses in Kiev. Later we learned that the buses had been sent to pick up people from the villages near Chernobyl, in particular from the very town of Chernobyl, and to relocate them. I remember that time very well, as there were no information. I remember that 2 days later, my father returned and told us not to talk about it. It was a secret, that there had been a major disaster, an explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and that there were dangerous radioactive substances in the air. He suggested that we stay home, not to go out. But despite that, we went to school. They did not call off any activities. There was no official information, but hospital. The city hospital in Pripyat was one of the most modern facilities in the area. The complex could fit up to 410 patients, and it consisted of 5 buildings with multiple wards and 3 medical clinics. Shortly after the explosion, 31 firefighters and plant workers involved in the extinguishing of the reactor were taken to the hospital. Despite the modern equipment, Doctors were unable to help the injured firefighters. Very high doses of the radiation caused acute radiation sickness. One of the firefighters died shortly after arrival, and the rest were transported to the hospital in Moscow, where all of them died within 4 months. Pripyat village. In order to understand how people had lived before and what happened to these houses which are located in Pripyat, I suggest that you go and see a house which hasn't had owners for more than 29 years. Soon it's going to be 30 years. Let's go and see it. Soon after the explosion, the authorities ordered the evacuation of all people within 30 kilometers of the plant. Over 130,000 people from the surrounding towns and villages had to leave their homes. Some of the residents have returned and have been living in these abandoned places to this day. Find the old case and get to know the story of Ivan Ivanovich. Tell us a few words about how you live here and about the year you were out. Indeed, we left only for 1 year, and then we heard the comment, "Go back home." We left everything and came back here. There were 140 people who came back to the town. There was a witness for each home. We were told, "Seize the houses so that no one takes them over." We had to let in the second group of people, and those people opposed. Those who lived near the reactor were given 40 minutes for each house to gather their belongings, and then they were evacuated. So those people said, "There is enough space for us too." And so they did not let in the second group of people. Once it happened, it was decided that no one would go. We were left as we had already entered the area. I have to admit that for a year or two, we did not pay for the electricity. We were provided support, flour, cereals, free of charge as a reward for the fact that we agreed to come. And then they began to ask why we settled here, and suddenly we were blamed for